remote organizations, 95% of the ones that you're going to find are all using the G Suite tech stack. That's because it's incredibly highly collaborative. It's really easy for them to get into. And as I mentioned before, most of these are tech companies. So you're going to be using Google Docs, Google Calendar, Google Sheets, and which is all of which are incredibly comparable to Microsoft. So if you don't have experience using the Google Suite, including Google Slides, you shouldn't have a really hard time transitioning into the G Suite if you have a strong Microsoft background. I personally prefer working in G Suite than in Microsoft. The last time I worked in Microsoft was, I want to say, 5 years ago. So I haven't worked in Microsoft recently at all. I know there's a ton of new tools and tons of awesomeness like Teams and amazing stuff that's come out of OneNote, which is really exciting. But I would say, because Google is free, you should probably familiarize yourself with both Google Docs and Google Sheets, and probably Google Slides as well. As an executive assistant, it probably will be incumbent upon you to draft presentations and be able to demonstrate your creativity within Google Slides. So start playing around with that now. I can link a ton of great resources on YouTube that will kind of walk you through really cool shortcuts and cool ways to add some creativity to your Google Slides very simply. As I said, it's super user-friendly. So please make sure that you have gotten yourself somewhat familiar with Google Docs, Slides, and Google Sheets. Again, very comparable to Docs, Microsoft Docs, and Excel. So not a huge transition there, but definitely familiarize yourself with it. I think the main things that we talk about in all organizations are Slack or some sort of DM app, messaging app that you're going to work in. If you haven't worked in Slack, I suggest you start working in Slack. We're always asking that question. Have you used Slack before? If your organization does not use Slack, that's fine. Make sure you're join the official Slack channel, and you get in there, you start playing around with features, get into different channels, learn how to discover channels, learn how communication works. It'd be really interesting to see, the more you use it, how communication silos can develop in programs like Slack, and how you can proactively work to penetrate those communication silos. So try it. There's so many opportunities for you to use Slack. It's free. Project management is something that is growing, not just in tech, but across all industries in the global economy, because more and more we're focused on doing smaller projects that require more nimble working groups. And I think this really comes out of sort of, Ford had the assembly line, which became super important, and learning to work effectively on an assembly line was really important during the second industrial revolution. And what came out of Apple was the idea that small teams could accomplish way more than big teams. And this is like what's, I think, promoted the importance and prominence of project management. Learning to work in really awesome project management software is going to be very important for you. I don't think there's an organization out there that is not going to want to know that you've either worked in Trello, Monday, or Asana. If you've had experience in any of those three project management softwares, you're going to be able to adapt to whatever project management software they're using. That being able to digest and dissect the information out of these kinds of tools and raise important and prominent information to your executive is really going to be the heart of what you're doing. Also, leading small projects on your own is probably going to be super important too. So make sure that you have experience, again, with either Monday, Trello, or Asana, even if that's personal experience, so you can talk about this in an interview. While we don't work with these technologies in my organization, I do use Trello in my personal life to help me manage menus, family responsibilities, or my own personal development goals. So mess around in there and make sure you get on some great project management software. The other thing, if you're working and you're looking to transition into deeply technical companies, because there's a lot of awesome perks that come with working with tech companies, which is, was strongly a motivator for me when I left corporate retail, was to get into a tech company that had amazing perks and was doing really cutting edge stuff. You're going to want to make sure that you have familiarity with GitHub, software engineering culture, that you generally understand where their focus is. So I didn't have a ton of experience with GitHub, but go around, poke around on there. It's definitely for engineers, but even being able to speak with some familiarity about GitHub will probably be very impressive for an executive assistant to be able to talk about. So from a billing standpoint, many of us use Expensify. I've been using Expensify for 5.5 years. I used to use Concur, and then before that I was doing it all by hand. So Concur is great, but Expensify is very straightforward, super simple, really easy. I think it's something that if you're not using, you'll probably love because it's so incredibly user-friendly. It's just like awesome. So if you haven't used Expensify, try it out. Again, you can use it on your iPhone, you can use it on your Mac, whatever you have. It's really straightforward and super simple. And then for travel, we use all different kinds of apps for travel. You can use Hotel Tonight, which is something my boss loves. Travelocity, depending on how big your organization is, will depend on, what kinds of travel software you use, but lots of good stuff out there. As an admin, I'm sure you're pretty familiar with all of the travel software out there. I don't do as much of that because I work for somebody who is a digital native and prefers to do all of his own booking and things like that. But lots of great apps to streamline your executive's life, make it easy, stay in contact, and get things moving for them. As far as my hardware is concerned, I am a Mac person. I've been using a Mac since 2008. So yeah, for a long time. I worked on a PC for 3 months when I was at Sephora, but when I started supporting the CEO, he was also a Mac person. So we both moved over to Mac for work. So I've been working in Macs for my professional career, almost the entirety of my professional career. I will say in the vast majority of remote companies, you're going to be working with people who also work in Macs. Not a ton of people work in PCs, but there definitely are folks who prefer PCs to Macs. Totally fine. Again, as long as you're comfortable with working in G Suite, working in Expensify, Asana, and things of that nature. I use this great Bird microphone here for meetings like all hands, just to help clear up my communication. And I also have both my laptop on risers and I have my second monitor on risers. That just makes it a lot easier for me to sit at my desk for long periods of time. I will say that my husband has a sit-stand desk right next to me. So he just lifts up his desk to stand up throughout the day and then brings it back down to sit down. I prefer to sit and then walk around. I don't like standing up to work at all, but a ton of options, regardless of what you like to do and what your preference is, sitting or standing. Yoga ball, grab one on Amazon. A lot of people at our company love those things. But make sure, I would say like the bare minimum is your laptop, a second monitor. You really will have to have a second monitor. Most remote companies will either pay for your new laptop or send you one. So not a big deal there. And make sure that you have the proper setup from a technological perspective. Things like a microphone, and making sure you have, filing systems in place in your own house. Like, where do you keep your office supplies and stuff like that? Getting some drawers or a couple of desks, or cabinets from IKEA is just what we did, which makes it really simple and straightforward and, easy to put together with like 1,000 Allen wrenches. But other than that, pretty simple. Don't overthink it. Don't overdo it. Definitely get a second monitor. If your organization doesn't pay for one, I would be very, very, very surprised. Remote workers are used to their organizations either reimbursing them, sending them, or outright just paying for their tech setups. Because organizations save so much money not having offices, it's really a low expense for companies to just have to send their employees some tech.